follows an extract from my book Fête Fatale, available from Amazon. Chapter 9, Part 2. The presentation ended on this lighter note, and as the speaker was guided to resume her tea drinking before the journey home, Beth rose to take her place at the piano for the closing national anthem as the traditional ending to the meeting. The milder members of the group then headed for home, whereas Beth, Emma and Kirsty quickened their pace towards the Badger, where they knew that their chosen cups of poison awaited them. Beth was pleased to see that Jonty and Matt had come to join them for the evening, and gave each of them a tight squeeze of appreciation before taking her seat next to Drew and picking up a waiting pint of Cheshire set. She was soon joined by Natalie and Nicola, who managed to squeeze a couple of stools into the group and then began rehashing the topics of the evening to their own satisfaction. "You really ought to consider entering one of these flower shows, Nicola. You really are just as good as those pictures we saw tonight. The promotion for your flower shop would be fantastic. You could double your prices if you won," said Natalie. "I'm not sure that I want to double my prices. I'd have no customers at that rate," said Nicola. "Maybe not, but the point remains. You should look into it. I know a landscape gardener who entered, and he won a prize too," said Beth. "He was just an average kind of guy who ran his own landscaping business. You don't have to be anything special, just good at what you do. Natalie's right. You ought to think about it and do some research. It would definitely do you good." "It's not something that I'd ever have considered. I've visited shows, of course, but I've never thought of entering. I'll give it some thought. Will that satisfy you for now?" said Nicola. "Just for now, but we won't let you conveniently forget. If you don't enter, you'll have to give us a damn good reason for bowing out," said Natalie. "What made you ask about the plant crime, Kirsty?" asked Emma. "It sounds silly when you say it like that," said Kirsty. "The sinister green fingers of the underworld, huh? It's not very funny really though, you know. My garden was ransacked on the day of the fête. I can't think how they all did it though. I never left them alone. Between me and Jean there was always somebody on the lookout." "Oh, your poor garden, what's been nicked?" asked Beth. "Pretty much a bit of everything. That woman was right. I'm sure some of them were carrying secateurs with them, as some of the cuttings are quite neat. That's annoying enough, but some plants have had bits ripped off any old how. Some of the plants are a real mess, especially the woody-stemmed ones. Some bits have been ripped right down the main stem. It makes my blood boil. Robin Denton said it's like an open wound, and she's right. There's nothing I can do about it either. I'll just have to chop off the damaged bits and let them recover. Some of the plants were really well established too, and it'll really set them back in their flowering now. It happened last year, but this year was much worse. I've read that since the recession, green collar crime is really on the up," said Kirsty. The levity of Kirsty's predicament became apparent as sniggers broke out at the bizarre turn of conversation. "I know it sounds ridiculous, but imagine if you owned a garden centre or a flower shop like Nicola's. It takes on new meaning then, doesn't it? Apparently, OAPs have taken to stowing away stolen seed packets in foil-lined bags to dodge the shop's security systems. In my garden, the bloom of the rose bushes has seriously diminished in some patches. Obviously, somebody fancied an unofficially sponsored rose bowl. The herb garden got a pasting too. I suspect a load of the old ears were inspired to try sage as an alternative HRT and thought to give it a go pro gratis. It's just downright lazy, as it's easy as anything to grow and it's cheap to buy too." "Well, city crime just can't beat this. Who thought living in a village could be so treacherous?" said Jonty. "What are drive-by shootings compared to this?" "I told you that village life has as much nastiness as the city, didn't I?" said Beth. "I think I prefer the brashness of city crime," said Matt. "At least it's up front and doesn't pretend to be nice. This is just small-minded pettiness, which I think is far more shabby." "I quite agree with you, Matt," said Kirsty. "It's just so futile and unnecessary. I've got my work cut out for me now, and I've had to start trimming things back far sooner in the season than I'd wanted to. I've done all the emergency cases as best as I can, but I'm waiting until I've got some time off work before I can get a proper look at everything and tidy it all up. Orders were being taken for the last round, and Emma got up to leave, not wanting to leave Nathaniel on his own for too long. She also wanted to get back to Primrose, as she still wasn't quite back to her usual self after her cold. The conversation fragmented into different topics, and Beth turned to Gareth, Nicola's partner, sitting on her left. "Didn't you deal with John Barlow's accounts? Are things a bit sticky for you after he died so suddenly?" said Beth. "I can quite honestly say that we've been better prepared than this, shall we say," said Gareth. "I know that you can't break professional trust, and I don't mean to pry into private information. It's just that it's pretty common knowledge that things were a bit sticky for John, and now you must have your work cut out trying to wrap it all up. Do you think that the stress of it all could have pushed him over the edge?" "That's a bit drastic, don't you think? You'd have to ask Dr. Wainwright that. Not that he'd tell you, I'm sure." He gave Beth a wry wink that suggested she might be on forbidden territory. "Oh, my brother's a detective chief inspector. I'm the model of discretion, you know," laughed Beth. "Poor you. You've got to tidy up all those loose ends now and clear up the mess. Jean says that she doesn't understand business, but I suppose it will all go to her now. I suspect that she's shrewd enough to deal with it. I suppose that once everything is in order, we'll be guided by her wishes. I've not troubled her with it for the moment, as there's not much she can do just yet," said Gareth. "I know there's a lot of gossip, but John's situation wasn't anything like as bad as folks are making out. It's ironic, really. There were a few things he could have done to smooth things over, but he just didn't seem to want to take action. It's sad that now he's dead, it'll probably all sort itself out anyway. We'll just have to wait and see. I think that John was too sensitive and seemed to think that lean times were shameful. It's not like that at all, but he couldn't see it." For the full book of Fête Fatale, available in paperback or as an ebook, follow the link in the cards in the description box or find details on my website at sharonbill.com. Thanks for listening.